I've been asked several times to give my thoughts and my opinions on Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. So I thought, why the heck not? Have a platform, let's just go ahead and get this out there now. This is a No One Asked Us movie review for Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. Welcome in, everybody. As I said, this is going to be a Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness review. This will be a spoiler-free review. I'm not going to sit here and talk about everything that happens in this movie. I'm not going to ruin it for people that want to see this movie. I'm sure a lot of you will want to see this movie at some point here in the next week or so. So I'm not going to ruin it for you. So this will be a spoiler-free review. So if you do want to leave some comments in the comment section, please leave those reviews. Please leave those comments to be spoiler free. As always, subscribe to this channel, like this video, follow us on all of our social media. We appreciate it. We appreciate all the love. Hit 100 subscribers recently on YouTube, so that's pretty exciting. I should probably introduce myself. My name is Logan Lee. I'm part of No One Asked Us. Doing this show by myself today just to kind of get some thoughts about this movie off of my mind. It's all I've kind of been thinking about for the last few hours since I saw it. And just needed to talk about it. So that's what we're going to do here today. I've taken some notes, so I'm going to probably go off those a little bit. I might go off on a tangent at some point. Who the heck knows? But as I said, this will be a spoiler-free review for Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, the 28th film installment of the Marvel Cinematic Universe that came out this weekend. All right. One other thing. There will be a much more in-depth review where we will talk spoilers and everything. I'll do that with my buddy Coach Steve, probably over on his channel next week. So if you're looking for that, keep an eye out on our social media. I'll make sure to be putting that out there as well. But for the time being, this is just me talking about the spoiler-free version of Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. So let's just go ahead and get this thing started. First off, everybody has their own expectations for this movie. I had my own. There seems to be some issue going along throughout the fan base of speculations, expectations, how do those intertwine? I kind of screwed myself up there, I'll be honest. But let's just get this out of the way now. Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness is actually a WandaVision epilogue, if you will. It is a direct follow-up to the WandaVision MCU Disney Plus show that ran in 2021. Something that I have talked about a lot on this show. A show that I really enjoyed. It's been my favorite of all the MCU TV series to this point. Really love that show. So this movie is a direct follow-up to the events of that movie. So if you were planning on seeing Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness and you haven't seen WandaVision, or you haven't revisited WandaVision, or you don't remember what happens in WandaVision, it might be worth your time to revisit that show. Yes, this is a Doctor Strange movie, and it is a Doctor Strange sequel to the original movie that came out in 2016, so some of those characters are going to be important, some of that storyline is going to be important, but this is just as much a Wanda movie as it is a Doctor Strange movie, and it really reflects that in the story, and it is very much a follow-up to WandaVision. So as I said, I encourage anybody to revisit that show if they need to before they see this movie. It will probably help you out a lot. That's the first thing that I kind of wanted to go over. Let's just get into the movie itself. There's a term in around Hollywood that developmental hell is what they call it. Developmental hell is when a movie takes forever to get out. There's a lot of issues with it. It maybe never comes to fruition. This movie did not sit in developmental hell. But I think it might have been a development from hell, for lack of a better term. This movie has had two different directors. Scott Derrickson started directing this movie. He is the guy who directed the first Doctor Strange movie in 2016. He left the project about a year ago. Mid-production, May of 2021, he left, very quickly was replaced by Sam Raimi. Sam Raimi is known primarily for two things around mainstream Hollywood. Comic book fans know him from directing the original Spider-Man trilogy, which really launched a lot of this stuff from the MCU, from a lot of superhero movies. The first two Spider-Man movies that Sam Raimi directed are considered two of the best comic book movies, but he also directed the Evil Dead franchise and created that franchise. And you can definitely tell that with this movie. A lot of the same horror things that Sam Raimi is also known for are very much integral in this film, and we'll talk about that here shortly. But it had two different directors tied to it. It had several pandemic-related delays and reshoots. There was a changing of the order of the MCU. Originally, this was supposed to come out before WandaVision, and with the pandemic and everything that's happened since, they've had to reshuffle a lot. So then you do that, and they're rewriting the script on the fly. It was just a mess, and you can just tell that as you're watching this movie. They struggled to put a cohesive story together just because of all the hand they were dealt. It wasn't anybody's fault. This wasn't Sam Raimi's fault, Scott Derrickson's fault. This wasn't Kevin Feige's fault. This wasn't Benedict Cumberbatch's fault. This was nobody's fault. But it was just a mess. And everything from the story to how it was put together, there was a lot of issues there. And for me personally, that really kind of took me out of the whole thing. I was noticing things from the very beginning. I thought, this doesn't really make a lot of sense, and I really hope this gets better. At times it did, but for the most part, I felt like it struggled. It struggled to get there. It was just a messy, convoluted script. Again, really nobody's fault. That's just how it was. Performances wise, Benedict Cumberbatch was great. Doctor Strange is not my favorite MCU character. The original movie is not my favorite MCU movie. It's fine. I enjoy him. I enjoy him as an actor. I enjoy the character. I enjoyed the first movie, but he was fine in this. He didn't do anything wrong in this movie. Elizabeth Olsen, I thought, really carried the movie as from an actor's perspective. There are a lot of issues with her story a little bit. Again, as I talked about, the story as a whole, but Wanda's story arc in the movie is a little messy. But from an actor standpoint, I thought she was great. Elizabeth Olsen was wonderful. Really carried the movie, I think, again, as she did in WandaVision, the TV show. I thought she was excellent in that as well, and I thought she was great in this. On top of the story issue, my other big takeaway after this movie and this is probably a little my fault for getting a little too deep in the whole speculation thing. The big conversation surrounding this movie, going into the movie, was that this would be a big event movie that was going to be instrumental for the future of the MCU. It was going to set up things. It was going to introduce things. It wasn't really that. It was a very contained story, which isn't a problem. I don't think that was the issue. It was the conversation and the speculation and the theorizing around this movie that you listen to, that people that spend their time on the internet talking about these things, reading these things, watching videos, people talking about this stuff. That's just what it was. And this movie was not that. Again, that's not a problem. But for me, as somebody who was expecting a little bit more and ended up not getting as much as I was expecting, it kind of took it away from me a little bit. With a revisit, I might feel different now that I know what's happening. I might be able to watch this and just to kind of appreciate it more for what it is. But I think I still went into it knowing that it probably wasn't going to be a super movie. But I think I still went into it expecting to see a lot more happen and a lot more effects, and that just wasn't the case. Sam Raimi, I mentioned him, the director of this movie, who was the director at the end of this movie. He didn't start the movie as the director. I'm glad he got to come in and do this thing. I'm glad that he got to come in and put his own stamp on the MCU. This is something the MCU has done several times. They bring in directors who put their own little flair on a movie. They put their own little flair on the MCU as a whole. They bring in different types of movies. We've talked about it. I've talked about it a lot. The Spider-Man movies are very much high school comedies. I liked that they were willing to bring in Chloe Zhao to do Eternals. Now, that movie didn't really succeed on a lot of levels, but I was able to appreciate them willing to do that. So the same can be said about Sam Raimi, who brought his own style to this movie. Very much comes from the horror background, and the way that he shot the second half of this movie in particular was great. I really enjoyed that. It was a nice change of pace. This isn't a horror movie. Like, it's not something that I can't advise you to say don't take your kids to this movie by any means. But it does have some scary elements. That's just it's a PG-13 Disney movie, so take that for what it's worth. But it does kind of, toe that line a little bit, especially in the back half of this movie. So keep that in mind too as you're going into it. I know horror is not for everybody. It's certainly not my thing. And again, this isn't a flat out horror movie, but it does have elements. There are jump scares, and it's not gory, but there is some violent stuff in this that you don't typically see in some of these movies, especially MCU PG-13 Disney movies. So that stuff was kind of different, and I thought it was kind of cool. I thought it was great that they were willing to take those chances and let Sam Raimi do that. I think it added to the movie. It added to the effect for what they were trying to go for. So I was all for that. At the end of the day, I think I have this movie sitting at like a 76 out of 100. I know that doesn't seem like a low score, and it really isn't, but I have it towards the bottom of the MCU list right now. Now, I will watch this movie again. I'll see it several times, and it's, that number may change. It may rise some spots, whatever. But just my initial reaction coming out of the theater, 76 out of 100, that's kind of where I see it at. It was just kind of fine. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed parts of it. It wasn't my favorite thing, and that's okay. Everybody's going to have their own opinion. Some people are going to love this thing. Some people are not going to love this thing. If you enjoy MCU movies, I don't think you won't enjoy this movie, but it may not be your favorite. And that's, as I said, that's going to be okay. We have like 2 other MCU movies coming out this year, at least. It's just another brick in the wall, essentially. It's not a groundbreaking, this is going to change the future of the MCU movie. We're just kind of teasing the multiverse. We're not teasing it. We're actually going into the multiverse this time. But it doesn't really have the implications that I was kind of expecting it to have. So 76 out of 100 for me. That's kind of where I stand right now. So just wanted to get those thoughts out. I probably have more things that I should have talked about, that I wanted to talk about, that I haven't talked about. I will have a much further conversation with Coach Steve on his show next week. We'll talk about spoilers. We'll talk about a lot of the things that I didn't touch on here. It'll be a lot longer of a video. This is obviously pretty short, but keep an eye out for that if you want to hear more. So that's going to do it for me. As always, subscribe to the channel, like the video, follow us on all of our social media. That'll be all in the description down below. And until next time, whenever that is, thanks for checking out the video.